evening, fight fans. Welcome to another great episode of the Headkicks and Haymakers. We are back, baby. We are back. We took last week off. Hope everybody enjoyed their holidays, their Christmases, and hopefully you had a good New Year's yesterday. And New Year's start. Hopefully 2025 has started off for you on the right foot. As you can see, I am dressed to impress. The other gentleman, I guess I didn't get the memo to him in time. But it is, before we look at 2025, we got to look back at 2024, the year that was the year 2024. It is our MMA awards. First of all, before we get started, boys, obviously always with me is my brother from another mother, your boy K Witt, and Mr. Bobby Blunts. Witt, we'll start with you, man. How are we feeling? 2004, or 2024, Dana always says, he likes to make it bigger and better every year. Your thoughts on the year that was just 2024 before we get into our awards?
I mean, bro, I think, to be honest, this was one of those times when the envelope was pushed. And I think, and when I say that, I mean in more than one direction. Bobby, first of all, I want to say thanks for coming and hanging with us pretty much for the majority of the year when you got on the show. I think, your opinion is great. You're one of the coolest guys that we have had come on here and be consistently on the show. I can't wait to show up at your house and fall asleep after we do several things that I can't talk about on, the internet right now. But, hey, look, that's what we do. And then, so first of all, let's talk about the show. The show was great. I think we're doing an awesome job. Thank you, Bodkins, for being who you are and having Head Kicks and Haymakers be a consistent staple for MMA and boxing information. And then secondly, just for sports in general, combat sports, bro, let's be real. We had a year of things that we did not expect to happen when it comes to both UFC and the addition of the PFL realm. PFL kind of stepped into the ring and gave us a little bit of what we thought was going to happen. They didn't have enough gas in the tank, but they are driving a car. We can't get mad at that. Some people are on foot. Some people don't have a car. PFL at least has the vehicle, and they have to work on it. UFC, on the other hand, Uncle Dana gave us a huge list of things or expectations. Did he meet, or did the entertainment value meet all of the expectations? I don't think so. But I think where he was supposed to hit events like UFC 300, events like the Sphere, you know what I'm saying? The International Fight Week, some of the fights that we thought were supposed to happen for a long time did finally occur. And of course, we missed out on a couple of our favorite fighters making returns. We'll get into that, I guess, a little later. But I think 2024 as a whole for MMA was one of the biggest years ever. And then on the flip side, you guys know, for me, for boxing, this was the introduction of Riyadh season and Turki Al-Sheikh raining havoc on what we consider boxing as a whole. I cannot over or understate the fact that somehow, some way, to find a way to unify, multiple factions of boxing purists, boxing greats, boxing promoters, and get them to agree after years and years of disagreeing. Reasons why Oscar De La Hoya wanted to become a promoter, reasons why Floyd Mayweather wanted to become a promoter, is because Eddie Hearn and this one, or Matchbox and PNC or PBC and the WBC, they couldn't agree. Turki Al-Sheikh shows up with the checkbook, says we're going to do it in Saudi Arabia, and made it happen on multiple occasions in different countries across the world, time and time again. So boxing got put on notice this year, for sure. When it comes to promotion wise and events, I think UFC did a great job of putting a lot of gas into what we were going to see. Some of it worked, not all of it though, and we'll get into that. But it was a huge year for 2024, man, for just combat sports in general. Oh yeah, we can't forget about BKFC and slap fighting. Who thought slap fighting was gonna be, there's gonna be something that was gonna last, be sustainable. guys slapping the crap out of each other month after month after month. I thought it was going to be a flash in the pan, but it's still going on. There are still guys in bars right now training to slap a stranger for thousands of dollars. I can't believe it. So there you go.
Chicken tastes so good, make you want to slap your mama.
Right.
Bobby, any thoughts for you on the year that was 2024?
Yeah, I mean, definitely hell of a year. I was going back on quite a bit of it, prepping for this, and didn't even realize that some of these fights, occurred in 2024 because it was such a, long catalog of fights and stuff. But at the same time, I think entertainment value-wise and stuff, it more or less delivered for what we were promised. Maybe a few of the bells and whistles and stuff for the build-up maybe didn't deliver. But I think the fights we actually did get and stuff all more or less delivered violent-wise. So, I would say it'd be a success. I'd say it'd be pretty hard to top, but at the same time, the UFC seems to be pretty good at, running back exactly what they did the year before, but just doing it better. So with the stuff they already have on the slate for the early 25, it looks like they're just going to keep picking it up, business as usual, and can't wait for them to get back to it.
Yeah, we had 6 new champions overtake from January of 24 to the end of 24. So the heavyweights and light heavyweight stayed the same. New middleweight champion went from Sean Strickland to DDP. Welterweight went from Leon to Bilal. Lightweight stayed the same in Islam. Featherweight went from Alex to Ilya. Bantamweight went from Sean to Marab. Flyweight stayed the same. Women's bantamweight was vacant in January, and now Juliana Pena has it. Then you have Alexa Grasso, who was the strawweight and is now the and then now Valentina, and then Whaley has maintained her title as well. Strawweight, and then Valentina's the flyweight. So we have 6 new champions, and we'll do a new 2025 preview next week. Kind of talk about what we think is going to happen in the year of our Lord 2025. But that's what makes it like crazy to me. It's like every year there's always new champions, and sometimes the belt changes 2 to 3 times. That could have happened maybe in December, if Bilal had not gotten hurt, that there would have been 3 different welterweight champions in the year. There's some fights that we didn't get to see, and some fights that we get to look forward to. But nonetheless, let's look back at the hold on. I'm going to jump in these topics. Our guy Cross here says, no matter what Bobby picks, he says he disagrees with all your picks, Bobby.
I don't doubt that.
And crazy. We're not changing the thumbnail. Sorry. It is what it is. We like it. So, it's not disrespectful. It is what it is. It's a sentiment of the sport. Hey, we like Tony. I like Tony too. But you know what?
If you watched the show, y'all knew I was waiting for El Kukui to come back and prove everybody wrong. He had Goggins in his quarter. We'll get into it. Yeah, I'm sorry.
All right, let's get into it. We'll start off the year with the moment of the year. Well, Bobby, I'll start with you. The moment of the year.
Well, I mean, a lot of things happened this year, so it's hard to really pick out one moment. But full disclosure, I actually asked for us to create this category, mainly because I was worried about this moment being removed because it wasn't possibly making the cut in my other categories. So for me, the moment of the year would be at UFC 300 when Max Holloway was styling on Justin Gaethje for 4 rounds. He was completely up. He pointed to the center of the octagon and he said, "Hey, you want a shot? Take your shot." And he was able to still KO him cleanly. kind of makes sense that he did, because he said, hey, meet me at the center. And, there's a reason he obviously didn't do that with Ilya. But with everything else that happened in the sport, all the different moments that came out of that one moment, I think that is like by far one of the more important moments that happened this year. So I had to make sure to give it some type of credit.
Yeah. Whit, your moment of the year.
My moment of the year is one that I think myself personally, I didn't expect to happen, because I was getting to know by, we watch a lot of MMA, and I think in my watching this fighter, I skimmed over the fact of how good he possibly could be. And that moment has to do with my guy, current champion, Merab Dvalishvili, and his dismantling of Henry Cejudo. Now, that wasn't that. Let me before I say this, let me tell y'all something. Henry Cejudo is a wrestling champion, Olympic wrestler. His resume is extremely long. But when I thought about it, I was like, how is this shocking to me? When you take a man and you treat him like a child, you put him over your shoulder, you lay him in front of your boss, and you lick his back, okay? And you tell your boss that that pretty much this is not the guy. You're proving to everyone that it is you. You are the man. This is your division. You are putting everyone on notice, because I think to a degree, we as casual fight fans, we were expecting some type of competition during that fight. You know what I'm saying? We were looking for something to manifest, even if it was a little bit of, hey, Merab has a chink in his armor. There is somebody that could beat him. He's not as good as we think he is. Here comes Henry Cejudo to save the day, to kind of, give us a display of what could happen if somebody was in full competition. Because, of course, Henry Cejudo came off of the couch. He was champ. So let's not call Cejudo a bum. You know what I'm saying? Or let's not look past what Cejudo has done in the sport of MMA. But to see him carried across the ring, right, put in front of Dana, talk trash to, left on the ground, very much like how you would do a little brother, a nephew, or something if you were trying to prove a point to an older relative. I thought that was one of the more shocking events for me. And the thing is, I tried not to go with that one right there that Bobby did, because I thought I wanted to save that moment for another category. But for me, man, it's definitely Merab. I think that was putting a stamp on the division right there. There's no other reason for us to think that the machine, as he proved out to be, could not demolish the rest of the division if he did Henry Cejudo like that. So that was my joint right there for 2024.
Yeah, my moment of the year, and we're gonna give it to none other than Max Holloway. Bobby's right. I mean, UFC 300, that knockout of Justin Gaethje is going to live in a time capsule of the UFC. Like, we're going to see that highlight for years to come. The pointing at the ground, the knockout, the I am him. That was the moment of the year, the biggest knockout on, this going into the 2024. It was who's going to be on UFC 300, who's going to be on UFC 300. After 300 was made, there was only one person we were there. Really, two people, I guess we were kind of talking about, but mainly one person, and that was Max Holloway in that knockout. So, Max Holloway, once you come on the podcast, I'll give you this in person, but until then, I'll put it on the shelf. Is my moment of the year. Let's get into Whit. I'll start with you this time. The rivalry of the year.
I had a good one for this, right? I had a good one for this, but it was it's kind of like I just had to make a decision, whereas this is what we're going to stay with here. And I think it's going to be somewhat of the like a forever type of thing. To me, the rivalry of the year and even though it somewhat was proven to be dominated by one person, I like DDP and what turned out to be was going to eventually be, pretty much Sean Strickland. We did not know what Sean Strickland and DDP were going to look like at first, right? Okay, let's be real. We knew that DDP was coming up. He had a name. The wrestling style, all of this stuff was happening for him, and it was happening in line. But somewhere in there, we got a chance to see Sean Strickland dismantle one of our heroes here on the show, in Izzy. And we thought, hey, look, if anybody could stop this guy, or at least I did, if anybody could put two and two together to figure it out, maybe let's work out a game plan or something like that. Let's get the guy who comes on the show and says, my father was a piece of trash. I'm a piece of trash. I'm going to take this guy to a place he's never been, and let's work it out. I think somehow, some way, not just the fighting prowess of DDP, but even his IQ on how to promote himself showed out time and time again. And even though it was, even though it pretty much was proven to be DDP is the better fighter, I really think that somewhere in there being a quarrel between two people, that shows you, two sides of the coin. You know what I'm saying? The guy for the wrong side of the tracks and the honorable guy from pretty much the other side of the world. I really did like what eventually took place. Of course, we all know DDP is going to be the champ. We got some good fights for him coming up. But I thought that was a pretty good rivalry. I had another one in mind, but I mean, in terms of
we'll get to honorable mentions after we all go. We'll give out some honorable mentions.
Yeah, but in terms of doing it more than having the opportunity to do it more than once, I thought about DDP and Sean Strickland.
Bobby, your rivalry of the year.
It was tough. I was kind of going through, trying to kind of break down really what is considered a rivalry and stuff. And I thought back and I watched a lot of different stuff, and it brought up quite a few memories. So the first time I ever came on this podcast was for the UFC Manchester. I don't know if it was Manchester or London, but it was headlined by Leon Edwards versus Bilal Muhammad. And, the reason I think it's a rivalry is you see how the fight kind of got made and stuff. There were the rumors of Leon Edwards at UFC 300. He was fighting everyone and their mother except for Bilal Muhammad. So, Leon didn't really think too much of Bilal. He dismissed him quite a bit because of their first fight, which ended with the pokes. And that seemed to really carry into fight week. Same, very dismissive of his skills. Bilal saying he was confident that he was going to win, that he was going to dominate him. And sure enough, when the fight happened, Leon just could not get anything off. He reversed some positions around and stuff, but more or less, he was just dominated. Leon, at one point, had to tell his coach to shut up because he was so frustrated. And it really felt like a rivalry, but it was a really one-sided rivalry once the octagon door shut and stuff. So I know it's probably not the most popular pick or anything, especially with it being connected to Bilal, but definitely the history of that fight and me coming on the show, and with all the other rivalries and stuff, I really put it over all those other ones. So my rivalry of the year would be Bilal Muhammad and Leon Edwards.
All right, I'm gonna give you mine, and then I'll give you my honorable mention as well. My rivalry of the year, give it up for Usyk versus Fury. They're the only two that got two in against each other for 2 years. they fought twice. Both was close. Fury thought he won both times, I thought, but I thought Usyk won both times, and nonetheless he did. Usyk, I thought, had the cards kind of stacked against him. I think Turkey wanted to have Fury win, but that didn't happen. So Fury Usyk gets my Rivalry of the Year award. Here's my honorable mention. Why they didn't fight, but they just kept going back and forth on social media and everything else, and they should have fought. Colby Covington versus Ian Gary is my honorable mention for Rivalry of the Year. And literally, I had that written down, and then I changed it to Fury versus Usyk.
I thought you were going the other way with it.
Which way?
I thought you were going to say fucking Chandler and Connor.
No, I wasn't going there. I wasn't going there. I was going Kobe and Ian is my honorable mention for Rivalry of the Year.
Yeah, I look back at some of the tweets that I put out to both of you guys, and I saw that I mentioned that possibly happening like twice. I was like, oh man, that'd be a good one, but being that it didn't, but look, I love the fact that you threw in Fury Usyk. To be real, man, and if you know that anybody watching knows, that was one of those events, two of the events, biggest events in 2024. It got postponed. We waited on it. It happened. Fury gets a knockout. Like all of that stuff building for it happening a second time was a big deal. And I think you're right, man. It was the cards were stacked against Usyk to win because he's not. I'm not saying he's a great fighter, awesome fighter, one of the best to ever to be a cruiserweight and move up to heavyweight. But somewhere in promoting fights, it's not as exciting to have the guy that's really jokey, makes everybody laugh, says funny things, be the A side of the card. But Fury, who gets there and riles everybody up and says the obnoxious things and stirs the pot, that's who you want to be facing. And it's unfortunate that he did get a win in these two bouts, but the best man did win. I can't wait to see what happens next with Alexander Usyk, 25.
Bobby, you got any honorable mentions? Rivalry of the Year?
Muhammad Makayev and Manel Kai.
Oh my God!
Now I rewatched this last night, and this is why this is an honorable mention for me. They getting into the cage were acting like this was going to be the Rivalry of the Year. Fighting at the Fighter Hotel. The fight got canceled once. They're both calling each other slurs. They're wanting to fight each other. Then they get in the cage. Security has to keep them separated the entire time. Even like when they're exiting the cage, they're trying to tell them, hey, stay back. And then what happens? The fight starts. And it is just the most. Neither guy wanted to give an inch because they didn't want the other guy to get a loss on the other one. So it was just a bunch of, very standoffish, this type of stuff. Makayev performance was so bad, I can't believe the UFC didn't cut him in between rounds, but they did wait until the end of the fight. The blatant shorts grab, I think it could have got a point taken. And not only that, but it also created a referee moment of the year in Mike Beltran telling Makayev, don't make me enforce the rules, which, just a complete crap fight. So an honorable mention for me is Makayev and Kipe there. Think we lost Botkins.
Yeah. Hey, listen. Well, I know he's coming right back. That's how things go. Yeah, man. I definitely think that was one of those moments that we gotta keep an eye on because it gave us the fire. You know what I'm saying? The fire that you want to have from a rivalry. That was what we got from Makayev and Cape. I appreciated, you know, as someone who likes to see a lot of that pre-fight stuff, I appreciated the fact that they kind of went at it and it seemed genuine. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't like made up. The boys really didn't like each other. Almost like what's my guy? Sarukian and my guy King and fighting in the hotel. I thought that was funny too back at one point. But of course, you know, Sarukian just pretty much demolishes everybody. That's why he's going to have a nice pay-per-view coming up.
Well, that was the cherry on top of it too, because at the end of the fight, they were hugging and embracing each other like they were just in some 15-minute war trading blows. I mean, it like I should like legitimately call it the soda pop moment of the year, because that shit was carbonated with filler.
Yeah, that I wasn't I mean, I don't agree with that. That is rivalry of the year. I mean, two clowns is what that was to me. Let's get into the next one. Next category, we got Coach of the Year. Bobby, I'll start with you.
So pre-apologies in advance, because I know I'm going to butcher this name, but my Coach of the Year, I have Moren Vissier, which is Drekis Duplessis' coach.
Ooh, okay.
You know, I kind of went back and forth with this because there are a lot of deserving coaches, especially that coach a lot of fighters and stuff. So I didn't know if it came down to that or the moment. But he does have a win over Eric Nitzik and, you know, Eugene. And not only that, but in both of those fights, his fighter, you know, kind of started slow or got off to a bad start. And he kind of definitely seemed to be able to coach him through the moments to have his guy, you know, get the W. So, you know, a lot of worthy candidates on this list. But in the end, I ended up going with him because I just felt like he had the most impressive wins that aged the best.
I like it. Whit, your Coach of the Year.
Let's see. So I was trying to find out the name, so I might be incorrect. It's a possibility. I could be incorrect, but I think it's my okay. So my coach. Let me start from the beginning. Okay. So there has been an influx. Yeah, there's been an influx of fighters who have been making names for themselves, who have been coming into the UFC, having really good fights, talking about it intelligently, and then their marketing for the fights or their name has been, I think it's top tier. You know what I'm saying? There's got to be some. If you're so good, there has to also be something on top of that to make you stand out. And all of these guys are being coached in a gym by this guy. And I'm talking about, I think it's Pablo Sacupira, the coach of the Fighting Nerds, right? And
that's a good one.
Yeah, and it seems like he's a really intelligent guy. When you sent me this the other day, I think a week ago, I was like, man, how can I find this out? So I had to go on like Instagram. I had to like Google it, and Google gave me another answer. But I think the Google answer that I found is because he coached one of the fighters or one of the fights that Sakupuria did not get a chance to be a part of. So, but in terms of the camp, you know, this is one of those things where you gotta get put on notice, because the Fighting Nerds have pretty much ran multiple divisions this year in 2024, made everybody pay attention. You know, when you get a chance to put you know, the Urkel glasses on multiple guys in post-fight conversations, you know, and your coaches, you know, sticking his chest out. He's happy because, you know, they're not losing fights. They're winning them, and they're winning them in grand fashions. There's knockouts. We got a couple subs. It's ways that I think, you know, accentuate each fighter's, you know, the way that they do the things that they do best, and that comes from good coaching, great camps, and it also comes from thinking about it in a way I think that a lot of fighters are approaching the fights the ways that they don't. You know, the way the thing is, the word nerd for a really, really long time was like negative. Oh, you're a nerd. No, not when it comes to fighting. Okay. Or MMA or anime. Now anime nerds are cool, you know. Fight nerds are cool. You know what I'm saying? Computer nerds. What? All you do is stay home and play on your PC and get people to watch you and they give you money? You're a nerd. Oh yeah. So the word nerd has changed into something completely different. And I think the Fighting Nerds camp and Sukupira have helped with that connotation. So shout out to the coach of the Fighting Nerds.
I like it. Now that's a good one. That was like one of my honorable mentions. So I like that one. Here's my 2024 Coach of the Year award goes to none other than Coach Polino of Alex Piera's camp, his head coach. A little foreshadowing, if you will, too, for Polino. 3 title fights, 3 finishes, got his guy ready in short notice fights. So Polino is my 2024 Coach of the Year. Real quick, an honorable mention. I do want to say Ray Longo. For what he did for not only Aljo had some big wins this year. Marab had some big wins. You know, obviously it became bantamweight champion and beat Henry Cejudo. So like that Jim and Ray Longo, what they're doing there in New York is got an honorable mention. Bobby, an honorable mention for Coach of the Year.
Yeah, my honorable mention I had was Glover Teixeira.
Yeah.
In rewatching all the potent fights when they were going down, especially in the Khalil Roundtree fight, it definitely seemed like Glover was giving him ways to adjust in the middle of the fight. And I know, not taking anything away from the other guy, but it definitely seems like he seems to get a lot more of the praise opposed to Glover. But I think if we ever see him, if he fought on Goliath and beat on Goliath, it would be Glover that got that. Because you know Glover's skills is what would have got him out of that. But that was my honorable for coach there.
Wait, you got another honorable Coach of the Year?
Yeah, y'all pretty much got him because I was gonna say Bochan's coach. I was gonna joke and say, yeah, of course he's got Glover Teixeira in the corner as well. Kind of like he got that one, but yeah, you guys hit the nail on the head. I did Sukupira because I was like, yeah, that's multiple fighters in different divisions.
No, that's a good one. That's a good one. No, I like it. Let's get into our next one, and it's Upset of the Year award. Bobby, I'll start with you.
It's another one I was kind of going back and forth on. At first I had Bilal Leon down mainly for everyone's perception of it. I myself did not find it an upset because I picked Bilal Muhammad to win the fight. But I think public perception is that, Leon was going to beat the brakes off Bilal, and that did not happen. But, I already gave him rivalry, so I kind of went back and the one that kind of stuck with me throughout the year, and I think it was just because there was no offense on the other side, that would be Money Moyakano beating the living shit out of Benoit Saint Denis in Paris.
Yeah,
I mean,
he
just went in there with a busted arm, knowing that he probably needed to, do some damage early to not have him, looking at that shoulder. And he completely, just shut him out. A 10-7 round, almost, you could say, in that first round. And, then that epic promo afterwards. So, there were a lot of upsets this year. You could do some that are more in title reigns and stuff. But just off of perception of what people thought it was going to happen in Saint Denis' hometown, give me Money Moyakano beating BSD for upset of the year.
Yeah, I like it. That's a good one. What's your upset of the year?
All right, so I want to preface this because I once again I went through my stuff that I said and the early one, and I think that I think we talked about this at the beginning of the year. I believe this is right around the time Bobby was on the show, and I was like, I was right, and even if you probably didn't believe it or didn't want to hear it. So at the beginning of the year, a guy from Canada was big. Oh, he's paused. You know what I'm saying? Oh my God, he's gonna be cleaning out the division. He's da da da. Just can't wait to see him. Oh, and that guy, and so this is the previous, right? So, and that guy was Mike Malott. Y'all remember that? Good old Mike Malott, ex murderer, coming through. And they did the UFC Toronto 297, and I was Strickland Duplessis, and I was excited to see Sean Strickland and Trickus. But somewhere in there, everybody's favorite uncle, Neil Magny, said, you can't be anybody in this division unless you beat the hell out of me. And Uncle Neil took it to him, boy. Uncle Neil took belt to ass, and it was over. And out of nowhere, Mike Malott's whole rocket ship that he was strapped to be Canada's Superman was dragged to the ground by a man who looks like he cooks on a grill in slides. Okay. Well, shout out to Uncle Neil Magny in that one. And then I was looking at several other things, because even though I'm joking about Neil Magny, I looked at another one. I did really think about Edwards Muhammad. I feel like that was one of the ones where, it's like Bobby said, it took forever to happen. And we were anticipating something completely different than what we got. And then Bilal went in there and turned on that Dagestani switch and never turned it off on Leon Edwards. But and this, I'm just going to throw this out there. So in this case, I looked at, and this is not cheating. I had to look at this one, and I saved it so I could bring it up. Somewhere in what was this? UFC Fight Night. Jan Figueroa, the girl fight. I can't remember. Wang versus Fernandez. I remember us having a conversation about that, but I was like, I had to go refresh myself. This real book was crazy. Okay, I think that, and I think somewhere in Tapology's list, it's like up top. I wrote it down and I forgot to go find it so I can get y'all the exact measurements and everything from it. But I think it ended in the second round, and I remember us having that conversation about that fight night in particular. But for me, just for the sake of having somebody be upset, like I said, the Mike Malott was headed to the top of that time, and Neil Magny, stuck his leg out, put the banana peel in the tailpipe, and stopped all of that. So shout out to Neil Magny.
Yeah. So my upset of the year award now, maybe the odds weren't that, like, you didn't win a lot of money on the fight, but he was still a dog on the fight. And it was one of them fights looking at you like, oh man, they're feeding the old guard to the young dog. And the old guard just coming off a vicious head kick, getting knocked out. And that is none other than Dustin Poirier fighting Benoit Saint Denis. Remember going into that fight, people thought they were just going to feed Poirier to BSD. BSD was going to walk through him, and he was going to win. That would put BSD right into the title fight contention, and we were going to see the end of Dustin Poirier, because Dustin Poirier was coming off getting knocked out by Justin Gaethje. So Dustin Poirier, because the cards were stacked up against him. Maybe the odds were only plus 170, but to beat BSD. But by God, he was a dog on the card, and he ended up coming through. The cards were stacked up against him and pulled out the upset. Give it up for Dustin the Diamond Poirier over BSD to be my UFC upset of the year.
That was my honorable mention, actually, because I was pretty much going to pick that. The reason I have it as my honorable mention and, picked money over that one, because I agree with everything you're saying. They were counting him out and stuff. But Saint Denis did have success in that fight. and then Dustin came back and won, to where like money like just
Oh yeah, wipe the
completely
floor with them. Yeah,
shut
yeah,
him down. But like,
yeah.
it's pretty wild that both of those involved Benoit Saint Denis, who most people thought would probably be a champion by the end of 25 or something.
All right, there next to it. Whit, go ahead.
I got one straight up. It's on the boxing side. Y'all know me. I really, really, really was excited about this fight, and I too. And somehow, some way, we finally got it, but we hadn't seen this fighter in particular get beat because you know why? Saw this guy take dismantle my guy Francis Ngannou, and it hurt my feelings to see Anthony Joshua beat Francis Ngannou. Then all of a sudden, we got Daniel Dubois. Daniel Dubois, who just lost to Alexander Usyk at cruiserweight, just got clean at cruiserweight. Goes up to heavyweight, says he's in there to make a noise in the division, but he's going up against England's favorite. I don't know if y'all know, but Anthony Joshua. It's kind of like and what Deontay Wilder was here in boxing in the heavyweight division. Everybody was, Anthony Joshua was everywhere. Anthony Joshua's Nike sign. He's like, and when if you ever like went illegal streaming, which we don't, and you watch any of the streams in England, Anthony Joshua was on like a million commercials in England because that's how much of a figure he is. But in every fight, everything was leading towards Anthony Joshua. The Rick walk was about 4 minutes long. He played like 4 songs. He had Dubois sitting in the ring for like 5, 6 extra minutes, cooling them off. Got in the ring, and Dubois felt too fast, and it was not even close. Much the difference of Anthony Joshua to Daniel Dubois was. They even gave Anthony Joshua, in my opinion, and I've watched a lot of fights, gave Anthony Joshua multiple chances to regain his composure. Extremely long standing counts, and it did not work. I went over there every time, and by the 5th round, was it the 5th round? I think it was the 5th round. Either 5th or 6th round. By the time there was no more, you couldn't do anything else. Daniel Dubois really put it to Anthony Joshua. And I think there's no bigger upset in boxing this past year than seeing Daniel Dubois put Anthony Joshua on the canvas multiple times, at least 5. And they let him rock out when they probably should have ended the fight at least twice. So that was a big deal. Plus, once again, here goes Turkey Al Sheikh. We see millions of dollars at a fight card.
Yeah, I like that one too.
Yeah, I'd have no problem if that was upset of the year for everything, because it was shocking.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I didn't really have I think we kind of mentioned all the honorable mentions I had. Let's get into the next one here. We got Fight of the Year award. Whit, I'll start with you. Hey, Whit, you're cutting in and out. I don't know if it's your.
Am I? Can you hear me?
No, it's like choppy.
Okay, I'm gonna jump. Right, go.
All right, Bobby, I'll go ahead. Your Fight of the Year award.
Fight of the Year?
Yeah.
Another one. You had a big amount of riches to choose from on this, and in the end, I kind of went with one that probably isn't as like fan name popular and stuff, but it just really just delivered on everything. You got some striking, you got some moments in and out of the fight where a fighter gets hurt and then the guy comes back and is able to implement some grappling and get position. So on UFC 308, it was on the prelim card. It was Rebecca versus Orabayo. And, it was a 15-minute war, a literal war. I mean, Orabayo did not get the decision. He did, on my scorecard, he did win. But, he had a huge, broken orbital. so he couldn't see out of his left eye for most of the fight. There were times in the fight where he looked completely dead, and then some way was able to, get a grappling exchange and turn the fight back in his favor. And, I remember when I first saw the fight at work, because it was one of the middle of the day cards, and I knew, I'm gonna have to, go back and rewatch this one. And then when I went back and rewatched all the tape to prep for this, that is the first fight I watched, and I did that intentionally to see if anything else enjoyment wise got me that close. And, there are a hell of a lot of different honorable mentions and stuff. That one card on the UFC Sphere really showed out for the same amount of violence. But in the end, I think just back and forth for a fight of the year MMA fight, give me Rebecca and Oral Bias. And apologies for butchering the names, because I know I definitely did. Should have went over it with wit before I said anything.
What about you with your fight of the year?
Fight of the year. This was one I had to look at like multiple lists just to make sure I was including maybe fights that I might have like glanced over. And Orobai and Rebecca was one of the ones that I glanced over. But when I say fight of the year, I want to say the fight touched me in like an emotional place because it was this close to be, and I feel like there was a tie, like there's a shoestring in between what I'm about to say and what probably really is the fight of the year. And for me, the fight of the year was Makhachev Poirier. The fight itself, right? Ups and downs, back and forth, on the ground. What's going to happen? Can Dustin Poirier, block some takedowns? Has Dustin Poirier ever blocked a takedown? Is he going to jump the guillotine? How many guillotines are we going to see? You know what I'm saying? And I remember us going, don't be silly, jump the gilly. And that was, so we were ready for something to happen and possibly it lead to Dustin Poirier with an early exit. The fight comes on. Dustin looks better than I think I've ever seen him. And Islam is befuddled for 4 rounds. And we've never seen him look that way. And then the switch goes
busted up too. We got busted up.
And Poirier was taking it to him. Poirier had him, with the hand speed, the quickness, the shiftiness that we see from a prime Dustin Poirier was on display. And I think that Islam was prepared, but not prepared to get hit that many times. Then finally the switch goes off, and Islam is tired of getting punched. And boy, when the switch went off, he grabs Dustin Poirier, throws him into the air, midway in the air, grabs his elbow, and submits him before they get on. Like, I don't know how much of an MMA fan some of the people are that are watching or that will watch this, but let me tell you something. To see that real time happen, because you can see I'm talking about if you go back and watch that last round, you can see Islam getting punched and him going in his mind, I'm sick of it. This is it. And he grabbed Dustin like a rag doll, threw him up high enough to catch his arm and submits him. And the crowd, the everybody watching across America, all across the countries, like the air went out of the building because we thought we were going to see something that nobody else. That would have been upset of the year, in my opinion. If Dustin Poirier would have, if the round would have went to the judges, if the match would have went to the judges, I think Dustin Poirier would have won. You know what I'm saying? That would have been upset of the year. That would have led to Dustin Poirier, of course, possibly having 1-2 more years in the UFC instead of us discussing him possibly retiring. And
no, he was going to retire. And I'll go ahead. I'm going to just piggyback off of you with that was my upset or fight of the year too. Is Islam versus Dustin for what that fight had all the emotions going in. We knew this could have been Dustin's like he actually said if he would have won he would have retired, but like we knew this was like his last shot, like his last opportunity. And this is a guy we've watched, it's been in the UFC for like 19 years, like been fighting or started the MMA, I guess 19 years, but in the UFC for a long time. We've seen this guy grow and become one of the most elite fighters. And man, to fall close, it was such a good fight and a close fight and a fun fight. That was mine as well. A quick honorable mention. I would have to say UFC 300, Charles Oliveira versus Arman Sarukian, and I got Dan Hooker versus Gamrot as two of my couple honorable mentions. You got any honorable mentions here?
300 and Gaethje Holloway, of course, is one you got to throw in there. I
don't really feel like that fight was like fight of the year worthy. Like that was one sided the whole way. That's my issue with that fight.
I think the anticipation was more than what we physically got from out of the fight itself. But I can agree with you. In the ring, it was a whole nother thing. And now that I found my little link. Up here on the Tapology list, right? They got a couple of good ones, I think, that we might not have left out. You said Hooker and Gamrot, okay. Prohaska Rancic at 300. They got that up there. Drew Dober and Silva, and you on the UFC Fight Night card. Whitaker, Paulo Costa is up here. And what's another one that might be? They got Strickland Duplessis down here too. So, we pretty much named the ones that are up at the top. What is it? Zellber, and Robovics? Who's that?
Yeah, that was the one on the spear. That was like one of my honorable mentions there. Piggybacking off something you said that I agree with really strongly. And actually, maybe if we can go a category up to segue here, because I went back to watch this fight for submission of the year, and it almost ended up being my fight of the year. That being, Islam Makhachev versus Poirier, and just how the fight went down. Dustin was having limited success in certain areas, but he was, knowing not to put out too much because Islam was able to take him down, but he was doing a pretty decent job in being able to get back up. And then, Islam finally changed levels on him. So he was able to, once he was able to get that level change, he was able to lock in that Darce choke. And
he jumped on it like a cat too, like it just like a tiger.
He tapped, and then after he tapped, he went out.
Yeah.
So I kind of tiptoed around it. And I know you didn't ask or pitch it to me, but my submission of the year.
We'll go submission of the year. That's fine.
Makhachev's Darce choke on Dustin Poirier.
Okay.
There was a lot of great other submissions and crazy oh shit moments, but definitely like where that fight was, like, he had multiple positions where he tried to submit him and Dustin was able to get back up to his feet and he eventually ended up getting it. So to me, that was just a little bit more impressive. I know Dustin's been submitted before, so other people would probably have like Drickus for sub of the year on Izzy. But for me, just the way Islam was able to lock in that Darce after being unsuccessful submitting him for the first 20 minutes, give sub of the year to Islam.
Oh, real quick, I did want to before you give your sub of the year, fight of the year. I wanted to back up real quick. Honorable mention to Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano at the Tyson fight, the Tyson Paul fight. That fight was incredible to me. So I wanted to give love to the boxing ladies. Honorable mention for fight of the year as well. All right, wait, we got Bobby sub. What's your sub of the year?
Sub of the year, if there could be a 1A and 1B, Bobby, we just talked about it. If you go, I'm telling you, go back and look at it. I got a chance to just the cat-like agility to throw a man in the air, throw in the sub, get him to tap, and then from what I was doing some reading about like how that works. The thing that really makes a person tap out like that, especially when you're getting your circulation cut off, is the rush of blood back to your brain. Like that is what makes you black out real quick because it's such a sudden thing. I had no idea because, like you mentioned, Bobby, Dustin is awake and he is tapping, but as soon as he's kind of letting him go, he goes out. That's when he goes out, and it's kind of wild to see. But I didn't like this one. When I say I didn't like this one, I mean I had, if I had money on it, my money would have been on the loser or the person who was getting submitted. I don't have an affinity for the fighter who did the submitting. You know, this person was out for multiple reasons. For some odd reason, he's got really odd immune deficiency diseases or something, and he can't leave the country. But when he fought Robbie Whitaker and finally got old man Rob on the ground and he put his arm around the man's jaw, he popped his teeth out. Oh my God. So my submission of the year is Khamzat Chimaev versus Robbie Whitaker, and he pops out 4 of his front teeth just because he's been in a cage so long. He's been traveling so long. He's been trying to fight so long. When he finally got his hands on a man, he broke his face. And Robbie Lawler literally said, man, it did not take long. He said, Robbie Lawler said it himself. He said, Robbie Whitaker has said it on multiple shows. He was like, I've fought a lot of people. I've wrestled with a lot of people. I've done a lot of training. But it did not even take long for the submission to happen. And for Islam, not for Islam, but for Khamzat to do that to him in that quick of a time period, that just shows you, man. That guy's on another level. And even though I don't like him that much as a fighter, he did that thing. He did it out there in front of his people in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, threw his mouthpiece out in the crowd. Alhamdulillah, all that good stuff. And he's back on the scene. So my sub of the year is definitely Robert Whitaker versus Khamzat Chimaev. And I don't know what you want to call it. Is that a face? They got face crank. Is that real?
Yeah, we're on the same page on this one again too. My sub of the year, it's Khamzat Chimaev over Robert Whitaker at UFC 308. How quick and how fast he did it, and how fast Robert tapped against a guy like Robert Whitaker, who is as lead as it gets. That was my sub of the year because we couldn't how fast he just cranked his neck, made him tap quick. Anybody got any honorable mentions on sub of the year?
I got one. Of course, we already said the Poirier, Makachev. You could throw yep, this is one. I'm looking back at Tapology just to refresh my mind. So that Brian Ortega choke, that triangle choke on Rodriguez, that's a good one. Somehow, some way, we can't forget Yair Rodriguez was going up. That was a UFC fight night of that time. And
Dricus and Dricus versus Izzy,
yeah,
the rear naked choke, and then Patty submitting Bobby Green.
There you go. That's another one up here. Niamov versus Lima. Felipe Lima. Yeah, I remember that. That's another UFC fight night one. And then Patty Pimblett. We never thought he was going to be doing some submissions, but of course, he submits our guy Bobby Green with the triangle choke.
Yeah, Bobby said that.
Oh, okay, never mind. Screw that. Yep, there we go. Those are the ones I got.
Yeah. All right, let's get into we'll get into breakout fighter of the year. Whit, I'll start with you. Your breakout fighter of the year. This one's tough, man. There's so many. I had like 3-4 guys written down.
Yeah, man. Breakout fighter of the year, and this is kind of like a two-parter, because I'm partial to one, but I'm going to start with the one that makes a lot of sense, man. He's got a mullet. He's from Brazil. He's been out here doing the thing that on multiple fronts and multiple places. and he had some short notice fights in the past. Talking about my guy Diego Lopez, man. Diego Lopez, I think, is really coming into his own. Of course, when you get in front of a crowd like on a card like UFC 300, and you put on a show like he did, it's impressive, and he's impressed a lot of big time MMA guys. And it seems, and even though there's a language barrier, it seems as though he'll fight anybody. It doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying? A week, couple weeks, next week, Diego Lopez will be there, and he will put on the best performance that he can. So for me, it's definitely I'll let Bobby go because he might say my guy for the honorable mention. But yeah, Diego Lopez, I'm not going to say he came out of nowhere, but he definitely put on for the UFC every time he's been called on. So big shouts out to him this year.
Bobby, your breakout fighter of the year.
Hard to pick just one. Like you, I got 4 or 5.
You can almost pick a guy in each division. Like that's how I feel like.
Yeah, especially like when you look at some of these guys' activities and stuff. I mean, they're 3 fighters that went 4-0 in the UFC. So obviously, the 3 of them, should obviously be in the consideration. Then there are people out of the UFC. I mean, I know that's kind of a rare thing and stuff, but there are definitely some people there. I came down to, in the end, and I kind of like went back and forth between these 2 guys. But in the end, I think Joaquin Buckley is the breakout fighter of the year. Mainly, especially if you just go back to, when he was at 185 and he lost. And then even going back to when he was in 170, and then he had like the Conor McGregor call out, and everyone was like hating on him for that shit. And he just seemed to find a way to keep winning fights. And he wasn't always winning the fights. That Wonder Boy fight, you could arguably say he was losing, but he found out a way to catch Wonder Boy and knock Wonder Boy out. To be frank, Joaquin Buckley is on multiple lists of mine for KO of the year, for male fighter of the year. But in the end, the one I am confident he absolutely deserves is breakout fighter of the year. And I'll wait for my honorable mention in case it's the one guy you're mentioning.
Yeah, I actually Joaquin was a very honorable mention. I'm glad you went with him. I went back and forth on this one too, multiple guys, but I'm gonna stick around in that welterweight division, and I'm gonna go Carlos Parates. He went 4-0 this year in the UFC. I mean, at the beginning of the year, nobody even knew who the hell he was, and now he is a ranked fighter. In the welterweight, and people are claiming, he sign him up to fight one more time, and he should be it for the title fight. He's a fun fighter, smoking the cigs. Real quick, he's 4-0. I'm not to win off of Neil Magny in November, all by knockouts too. That's what's crazy with this guy too. So this guy could be a star. Part of that Fighting Nerds. And my other guy was I wrote down Kyle Bajardo. Now he only had 2 fights. That's why I went with Parades instead. But he had 2 massive wins over Paul Craig, and then dismantled Jared Cannonier. His in the second one. So I had Kyle Bajardo as one of my honorable mentions. Go ahead, Bobby.
Yeah, I had Buckley, Carlos, and then I also had Charles Johnson, because like those were the 3.
St. Louis stand up. Yeah.
So they had to be on the list. But then the other name I had next to him that isn't in the UFC, but I thought definitely had to get a mention. If we had a separate category, I probably would have put him in that. But it'd be Paul Hughes.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's the PFL or Bellator, but
that organization, whatever organization it is.
Yeah, that would have been an honorable mention for upset of the year too. Granted, another one I thought he was going to win the fight, but a lot of people did not think he stood a chance in hell. So it's rare when the PFL gets a fighter that makes you want to tune into their events, but they got one in Big News Hughes.
Yeah, I like it too. Paul Hughes is that's a good one. The reason Charles, I feel like Charles just hasn't fought, like he fought a lot, but didn't fight like the names, and he's at the bottom of the rankings. Like that's one worth. I think Parates and Joaquin, like they shot up, like weren't even ranked, and now look at them now. Like you could say both of them are 1 to 2 fights away from, being fighting for a title. Wait, any honorable mentions that we haven't mentioned for breakout fighter of the year?
Pretty much you got a lot of the nails on the head for breakout fighter of the year. You said Parates. Joaquin Buckley was definitely my guy I was trying to tie with, because just like Bobby mentioned, man, coming from another division, taking some tough losses, going 4-0 in a new division is a kind of a hard deal. But I don't. The other person I might. What other categories we got left? Because I don't want to like mess it up.
We got comeback. We got comeback, and then we got KO, female, and male. We got 3 categories left.
Yeah. Because I think one of these for sure is going to end up at least as maybe male fighter of the year. But definitely when I think about, maybe you could throw in some really good fights for Nasruddin Imavov happened, and that's just because we knew somewhere in there was some greatness. We just had to see it, and luckily we got a chance to see it 3 times in 2024. And I was in my mind going, if it wasn't Joaquin, if it definitely wasn't, Diego Lopez, Nasruddin, to me was a really not like I don't want to call him unknown.
I like it. You go to this time last year, nobody's saying, "Hey, this guy's going to fight Izzy," in a year's time.
Yeah, exactly. I don't remember having the Nasruddin Imavov conversation last year. So that's he was like Joaquin Buckley, Imavov, and Diego Lopez is like 1A, 1B, and 1C for me.
I like it.
Going off. You said his name like 5 different times. I can't pronounce it once.
Let's get into where we at. Comeback fighter of the year. So somebody that could have came back from some injury. But Whit, I'll start with you. Your comeback fighter of the year.
All right, man. This is when I say when we talk about comeback, I just want to say just come back from who knows where this guy was, and I thought it was cool that they put him on a main card. I think it was a co-main. And I'm talking about Cub Swanson, man. Like, let me tell y'all something. I like Cub Swanson. He's one of those guys that when I first started watching MMA, Cub Swanson was like his interviews on FX. I don't know if y'all remember, but back when UFC was on FX, like before the Man Show, they used to have like really uncut, like MTV style interviews where like Cub Swanson was like in the hood, posted up on a caddy with like Crips and stuff. And I thought, oh man, like I want to be like that guy when I grow up if I go into professional fighting. So I really thought that was cool to bring him back and to, of course, have the old man do his thing. Somewhere in my mind, if we could have one of those old guard, new guard fights, I want to see Cub Swanson. I would want to see Cub Swanson and maybe DP fight one time. Of course, that's probably never going to happen, but I think it would be cool. But yeah, comeback fighter from a tough road because he had some really hard losses, and he might still do it again. I got to throw out there just Cub Swanson real quickly, especially because of recency bias as well.
Bobby, your comeback fighter of the year.
Well, this one might get me in a little bit of trouble, which is why I asked you the breakdown of the rules. So if this isn't acceptable, I got a backup one to select. But, I just especially when you see how the fight played out, how the career had kind of gone, especially when we were introduced to this fighter. I really think there's only one selection for comeback fighter of the year, and that would be Hamzat Chimaev. Now, granted, how the hell is a undefeated fighter a comeback fighter of the year? I'll tell you how. I pretty much lost all faith in Hamzat. I really could care that he was undefeated. I did not think, he was too serious with the career. He seemed to be overtraining quite a bit, was having trouble making the weight. And ever since the Gilbert Burns fight, we have not really seen this kind of unstoppable, immovable force type of guy. Even with the Robert Whitaker fight getting booked, he pulled out of that like the week of. And I mean, a lot of us were saying, oh, shit, I mean, it's curtains. Is this guy even going to ever fight again? um, you know, Fast forward to now, and that fight with Whitaker, he literally broke his jaw with that squeeze, and just like that, stock went all the way right back up, like he's never left. Everyone's saying, give him the title shot next. Like that's all we need to see. So for me, for restoring his aura and the perception of what people thought of him coming into the sport, comeback fighter of the year for me is Hamzat Chimaev.
I like it. My comeback fight of the year. This guy was knocked out by Anthony Joshua. His child died, and then he comes back and he wins. Now I know you can say what it was, maybe competition, but he beat Brendan Fiera and is the Bellator / PFL heavyweight champion. And you come back from all those things, especially your son dying, and then to want to fight again. Francis Ngannou is my comeback fighter of the year. So Francis gets it. Real quick, I had my honorable mention would be what's the kid? Dominic Reyes is for 4 or 5. He had like 5. I got a 5-fight losing streak and had won 2 in a row now. So Dominic Reyes I had as an honorable mention just because of the hardships. So
yeah, my honorable mention I had was Money Moyakano. He didn't fight in 2023. He had the fight with Arman scheduled that got canceled. And then all the matchups that the UFC gave him in 24, let's be honest, the UFC was hoping he was going to lose those. But like Money says, he cannot afford to lose. And they got him booked with another match against Dariush in a few weeks here. So we'll see if he can kind of keep bucking that trend.
Wait, you got any honorable mentions for
you had me right there because, of course, I was going to go non-UFC comeback fighter of the year. Probably would have gone to Francis Ngannou. You said everything. We're from Luton to Joshua, leaving UFC, because they don't want to agree with you on money. Losing out from pretty much losing the opportunity to make millions of dollars, possibly John Jones. Getting knocked out by Joshua once again was probably a really big thing. Losing your son, I cannot imagine that. And going to represent, the PFL to fighting Brendan Ferreira. I think that was a big deal for 2024. So even though it might not have gotten the lure that it would have been in the UFC, I think it's a really big deal. Francis Ngannou won that fight. I can wait to see what the PFL and Bellator does to produce more around Francis Ngannou being on this coming
year. Yeah. Go ahead, Bobby. Had something else?
Yeah. We're at comeback, right?
Yeah.
God damn, it just literally slipped out of my mind. It will come to me. Damn, I can't believe that literally just slipped out of my mind.
You had it. I saw it.
It's all good. It's all good. We'll get into we'll go female fighter of the year, then KO, then male of the fighter of the year. Bobby, I'll start with you. Your female fighter of the year.
This is another one I kind of had to go back and was trying to figure out the way to go with it and stuff. And in the end, I think I just ended up going with the body of work that I thought was more impressive. So my female fighter of the year is none other than Dakota Ditcheva. If some people don't watch the PFL, they probably have no idea who the hell I'm talking about. But Cliff Notes, she's 14-0. And, everyone's kind of always wondered what would happen when she got tested and stuff. She won 4 fights this year in the PFL. So she had her debut fight, and then she won the PFL tournament. The last fight that she had was against Tyler Santos, who nobody else in the UFC was able to finish. That includes the champion, Valentina. She was losing a fight to her and ended up coming back and squeaking out the victory. But Dakota was able to almost walk through her. She finished her in the early second round, and she looked like the veteran in there, not Santos. So, I'm not saying I wasn't really unimpressed with anything going on in the UFC's women division, but there was never a moment that stuck out or anything. A couple of the fights I wanted to get made didn't really get made, and they did different matchups. So, next year we might be having a different discussion with, some of the matches getting made. But for now, for, female fighter of the year, I think it is none other than Dakota Ditcheva. And then I just remembered it for comeback fight of the year, honorable mention, Tommy Aspinall, for coming back from the freak injury and getting the win. But sorry for throwing everyone off, going back from 1A to 1B. But Dakota Ditcheva, female fighter of the year.
I like it. Who's your female fighter of the year?
All right, man. My female fighter of the year is this is purely for impact on multiple fronts. Let's say this, because she was in one organization. She pretty much cleaned it out. She left. She goes to another organization, or let's say she talks about not being in another organization, and she can't even make this weight because she would have to cut off her leg. Then she joins the organization. Then she makes the weight. Then she wins the fight against a pretty well-known fighter in Holly Holmes. And then right there in October, she takes on another fight, gets the decision against Vieira. I'm going to throw it out there, man. Big shouts out to Miss Kayla Harrison. I think that the reason why I'm giving it to her is because of the impact that she's having on MMA right now, where, she was big time in PFL. PFL, the pond, I don't want to disrespect PFL. You know what I'm saying? But the Atlantic Ocean goes to China. The Atlantic Ocean goes to Africa. The Pacific Ocean goes to China. It's two different things, still two different oceans. And the UFC obviously sometimes has larger waves in it, let's say. So joining the UFC, I think, and leaving the PFL, and then really, cutting the weight when she kept proclaiming, "I'll never go fight at bantam," all of that. Nah, man. But when a fighter's fighter will do what it takes, she made the weight. She beat Holly Holmes, and then of course, most recently, we got a chance for her to go up against some pretty tough competition in Ketlin Vieira. And I'm excited to see what the UFC will produce for her next. But once again, Kayla, she did it. She said she wasn't going to do it. And I think, that there's more on the rise for her in terms of what's going to happen with her in the UFC. So shout out to her. And I don't even think we've seen her scratch the surface. Like I've saw some of the stuff she did in the PFL. I don't even think she's done that in the UFC yet. So I'm excited to see what goes on in 2025.
Yeah, we're in lockstep again here. So my 2024 Female Fight of the Year goes to none other than Kayla Harrison. She left the PFL. Then she makes her debut on the biggest card at UFC 300. And it's like, can she make the weight? Can she make the weight? She makes the weight. She wins the fight, and then she gets another one in this year as well, and gets the W. So Kayla Harrison is my 2024 Female Fighter of the Year.
I got an honorable mention. You know what I'm saying? Honorable mention definitely goes to Zhang Wei Li. You know, had some really tough competition. But the fight one of the reasons why I want to throw out there is it's women's sports right now has like a really big microscope on it, and women's basketball, women's college basketball, and then to say I think this was UFC 300, right? And it was Yang Xiaonan and Zhang Wei Li. Biggest China, they're on the other side of the world. So many China pay-per-view, so many Chinese pay-per-views were bought, and they were up watching it. That type of impact on something, I think, is a big deal. So, although Kayla Harrison for me is just a bit of a bigger deal, Zhang Wei Li basically is right up the alley, and that was my birthday too. So I definitely remember not blacking out before that fight happened.
Bobby, any honorable mentions?
Absolutely. Chris Cyborg. I thought Chris Cyborg was going to get the piss beaten out of her by Pacheco. I just thought the inactivity was going to be her downfall, and it was the complete opposite. I mean, Pacheco had nothing for her. It was only the one fight, so it's kind of more why it's an honorable mention for me. But honestly, I think that one win is more meaningful than any of the wins in the UFC female division, especially since Pacheco has a win over Kayla Harrison. So, like I said, I'm not trying to shit on the UFC's women's division, but they need to get a little bit more consistent with the matchmaking. And I think
there was only one. Like they the female title fights were only once. You know what I mean? Like they only fought once this year.
That's kind of right. Like, why are you booking them one time? Like, let's circle them. Like, don't have them be like, oh, this is going to be, the fill-in title fight is the co-main event, so we can have two title fights. But it's kind of a whole different conversation. And but at the same time, though, Kayla is that thing that can inject the kind of blockbusterness into the division, especially because it can also bring Nunes out. So
how about that? There you go.
All right, let's get into. We got two categories left. We'll go KO of the year. Whit, I'll start with you.
Whoo! Knockout of the year, man. This is what I gotta circle back to one that we've already brought up. But it's a standout. It's a standout of all standouts, because to me, when I say we're going to circle back to a fighter, not to the fight, but to a fighter who has never been knocked out, is known for his hand speed, is known for taking the other guy out. But just this one time, just once, he met his match in the form of El Matador. That's right. We talk about Ilia Topuria versus Max Holloway. I was excited to watch this, ladies and gentlemen. I'm I am a Max Holloway fan through and through, but sometimes you got to give praise where praise is due. And Ilya Tuporia went in there and he did the Max Holloway to Max Holloway, which is something that I don't think we get to see very often. And Max did his best. He went out there and he fought a real Max Holloway style fight. But somewhere in there, in that very last exchange, I was like, he's standing in there with him too long. He's in there too long. And when you stand with a guy like Ilya Tuporia or like Max Holloway, and you're trading too long, there's a time in which your timing is off and their timing is right. And it switched right in front of our very eyes. Max was landing, and then he missed. I think he missed like an overhand right because Ilya has really good head movement, and the left landed for Ilya, and it was just that clean. It blew my mind. I think me and Botkins were in the middle of drinking and texting or something like that. And I almost knocked over a whole bottle of of alcohol, because I jumped off of the table. But for me, that one was basically the fight, the knockout of the year. Now, I got another one, of course, but that involves Max Holloway. But for me, the knockout of the year involved knocking a person out who's never been knocked out before. So that was the one I had.
I like it. Bobby, I believe you're leaning this way already.
I'd like you to go first, please.
I like
it. My 2024 knockout of the year goes to Max Holloway for knocking out Justin Gaethje. Again, because it was the moment of the year, it's also knockout of the year. Because you can't write UFC, you can't. The next generation will always remember this of Max Holloway and Justin Gaethje and the knockout that was. So yeah, give me Max Holloway KO Justin Gaethje at UFC 300 as my 2024 knockout of the year award. Go ahead, Bob.
Well, that's exactly why I kicked it back to you, because I figured it'd be a great segue. I can't disagree with anything you're saying. The moment it had, people are going to remember it for years to come. And it really revitalized Max's whole career. I mean, he was kind of the boogeyman in that division, like knocking off contenders that wasn't the champion, and obviously, he never has been able to get it versus Volk. But, that moment is just so iconic, especially pointing to the page and talking to him and all that. It just, the knockout happens, the entire arena goes up and stuff. The camera peers over to Ilya Tuporia, who seems all like shocked. Some very, odd people would say he was looking afraid, when really I think he was realizing just how much damn money he was going to make. Ilya saw that moment, and what did he do? He created his own moment. In that moment there, Max Holloway became worthy enough to become Ilya Tuporia's first title defense. In a fight that I had to go back and forth on not to make it my fight of the year. I mean, Max hit him with the volume, and Topuria just seemed to have the power on him. But in the end, not only was Ilya Topuria able to knock out Max Holloway, but he was able to do it with those stupid fucking UFC gold gloves, which they don't even use anymore because of the lack of knockouts that they were getting in the sport. And he was able to still finish a guy that has never been finished before. That is just raw power, and that is my knockout of the year. And segueing into that, Ilya Topuria is also my fighter of the year. Because how in the fuck can you not have two wins that have aged better? Not only did he finish and knock out Volkanovski, who people had at the top of the pound for pound list, but he was also able to knock out and finish Max Holloway. I mean, I'm not trying to hate on Alex Pereira at all, but in my mind, there is only one fighter of the year, and it is Ilia Topuria. The floor is yours, gentlemen.
Go ahead, Whit. Your fighter of the year.
First of all, thank you, Bobby, for leaving the stage open for one of us to come through with this one. So look, fighter of the year, right? That's what we are now. Which one we at?
Yeah, the last category, fighter of the year.
All right. So I have to almost in total full agreement with Bobby. Almost. Because once again, a lot. If y'all notice, a lot of the things I was saying was like the impact of what you're doing or what these fighters have done, or what we really are talking about. Kayla Harrison had an impact. Francis Ngannou impact on PFL. Diego Lopez impact on that division. Marab, of course, huge impact. This fighter that, of course, we are talking about has had to have an impact on things multiple ways on multiple fronts. And I gotta go with one of the most feared fighters in the MMA right now. And to be honest with you, it's still Ilia Topuria. I think the stamp was put on the UFC for him to have a reign that will continue into 2025. I hate the way that people are saying, oh, he's just a Spanish Conor McGregor. I'd love to be the black Conor McGregor if that was the case, because that means I'm going to make a lot of freaking money. I'm going to do something with the standpoint of with it. Did I get a tattoo on my chest? Hell yeah, I got a tattoo on my chest. You want to know why? Because it's cool. That's why I got one. Okay. But once again, going back to what we both hit on, doing something that hasn't been done is a big deal in the UFC. Max Holloway has stamped his name on that division for years now. You know what I mean? And I think, just like Bobby said, when I don't want to say he saw the cash register, but I think he said, yeah, that's the guy I gotta beat. Like, nobody believes me. And then for me, what the big deal was, and I really don't remember it before then. And I watch a lot of those. If you watch, ESPN late at night, ESPN2, they do a lot of those interviews. They show a lot of training stuff. I don't remember seeing a house with a gym with a barometric chamber in it. Like, Ilia Topuria basically lives like freaking Bruce Wayne. Okay. And he's not playing. He's in the house. He takes a shower. His butler takes his robe. He puts on shorts, and then he goes train. Like, that's all he does. And I think that type of insight to that lifestyle, you know what I mean? To that type of focus is what any other fighter would want to have. But Ilia's got it right now. And Ilia made it known in 2024 that this is where you want to be. This is how you got to. Not only am I good, but I'm rich, and I'm going to make sure that you know that I'm better than you. I'm better than you in the pre-fight when we got to talk about it. I'm better than you when I go and I speak to Dana White. I'm better than you when I go do interviews. You know what I'm saying? And it goes on and on. But 2024, he put a stamp on it. And I know Bacchus, you might say the other person, the person I was going. But the thing is, that person to me was already scary. Okay, he was already scary to me. The other person that could be
it's not the award is not who's the scariest or who became the scariest. It's for fighter of the year. And that's why fighter of the year is Alex Pereira.
There you go. See?
Because he headlined the biggest show in UFC 300, knocks out Jamal Hill. And then he comes back and fights in the second biggest card of the year. You know what they always say, International Fight Week. Just 2-3 months later, and he knocks out Yuri Prohaska a second time. And then he takes another fight in 2 to 3 months, and he knocks out Khalil Roundtree. Now I get what you're saying. Oh, it's Max. It's Alex. You know what those guys are also doing? They were going up and down in weights and everything else, and that fucks up your body. Everybody will tell you can't. GSP said himself, you can't continue to go up and you can't go down healthy all the time. That messes up your fighting skills, messes up your body. And that's what Volk did, who's coming off of 2 losses, 1 bad loss, and then tries to turn around and gets knocked out again quickly by Ilya. Max went up to 155 and then tries to go back down to 145. Didn't work out. The up and down doesn't work. It just doesn't work for people. And I don't know, but 1, 2, 3. 3 is more than 2. No matter which way you slice it and dice it. And I know Bobby's going to tell me the competition. Well, the competition is what the competition is. He beat the man right across from him, and he knocked him out not once, not twice, but 3 times. He took the fights on short notice most of the time. And all 3 of them, really, didn't have a full training camp. Especially, obviously, the International Fight Week against Yuri Prohaska. That was like on a 10 days notice, and beats him. There is no way. You can't write the year of 2024 in the UFC and MMA without the name Alex Potan Piera, and that is why he is my 2024 Fighter of the Year, baby.
Chama. Hey, look, you got.
Go ahead, Bobby.
You did it.
Okay, so yeah, not saying I don't disagree, but I am going to show my work and kind of get why we got here and stuff. Like for one, like in regards to UFC 300, if you remove the Max Holloway Justin Gaethje fight from UFC 300, is anybody even talking about that event?
Yes. They'd be talking about this.
Yeah,
I guess that moment just was, I don't know.
The only reason people aren't talking about that is because of Max Holloway.
I think the only reason,
which was my KO of the year, by the way.
I think the reason they're not talking about it is because they just figured it was supposed to happen, sort of thing. Now, granted, I picked against Pereira in that fight, and I still was not really shocked or my jaw didn't really hit the floor. It's like, oh yeah, he got taken out. Like, and maybe, just maybe, if that whole kick thing didn't happen with Herb Dean, I might feel a little bit different about it. Because every time I go back and rewatch that fight, I question that a little bit more each time. But granted, I don't think it really would have made a difference. But the body of work to me, like the 3 fights to the 2, meant nothing when you had Buckley and Prates and Johnson having 4 fights. So that's why, like,
it's easy to get undercard fights because everybody's trying to jockey for position. It's harder. People want their full camps to fight for the title. That's the reason Dustin Poirier took the title fight, because
but
wouldn't do it.
With those short notice fights, no one is turning those down because it's an easy title fight. So, like, yes, Potan should be praised for taking it on short notice. But I don't know if it's enough to get me to, unilaterally say that he's Fighter of the Year. I'm
you guys. I'm okay with Ilya being Fighter. If you know what I mean. That's why it's just difference of opinion. But
like, for all fairness, because you made some really good points, and I struggled with saying Ilya was Fighter of the Year for me. because of the activity of Botan. This is but when I think about what it meant to see, well, to go from what Bobby mentioned, which was watching Ilya's reaction to Max Holloway, taking Max Holloway on, knocking him out, and then of course, somehow, some way, we also get to see him with the vault stuff. I mean, it was tough, but
it's between those two. To me, it is, and like those are 1 and 2. To me,
so for honorable mention, and I didn't come out with it because I didn't want to piss you off immediately. But my first honorable mention is Potent. I had, my honorable mentions. I had Potent, Pantoja, Drickus, and Buckley.
Yeah, I'm good with that. All 3.
If Islam fought a second time, I think it'd be really close. Me picking between Islam and Ilya there, just because that first defense just meant so much, and then you figured the Armin fight would have been the second one. So holy shit! But yeah, definitely. Like you said, like if you want a 1A 1B it, I have really no issue with that because it's really hard to spell the year without it.
Yeah, we'll go ahead. We'll wrap it up here on tonight's show. We'll be back next week, 8:00 Central, 9 Eastern. We'll kind of do a little 2025 preview, and we finally get some UFC this weekend back at the glorious Apex. So that'll be. We'll talk a little bit of those fights, and then we'll do a preview of 2025. We'll kind of pick out our fighter of the year, female fighter of the year, pick out fighter of the year. So we'll make some predictions for 2025.
25. That's what we're going to talk about.
What? Wait.
I said, when will John Jones fight Tom Aspinall in 25? That's what we're going to talk about.
It's Conor
McGregor.
It's Conor McGregor really boxing in India. You know what I mean? So
Bullet going to leave Saudi Arabia.
So let's save that topic for the aggregator sites.
We'll see. Other than that, folks, it's been a great episode of Headkicks and Haymakers. It's been our great awards show. Shout out to all the great fighters. Thank you for giving us some entertainment, something to talk about every Wednesday night. It's been a great year for MMA. It's been a great year for the show. So appreciate you, Bobby. Appreciate you, Whit, joining me every Wednesday to talk about it all. It's been a pleasure. It's been a lot of fun. Can't wait to talk about more debates and things like that in this year, 2025. So other than that, folks, be a friend, tell a friend, like, subscribe, share. I'm going to hit that outro. We'll see you right here next week for a brand new episode of Headkicks and Haymakers. See ya.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Thanks so much for joining us, and until next time, let's talk sport, friends. Thanks for watching.